I would like to say what went right is Maya McDermott. I mean, we can really critique. I think sometimes we do that a lot, both ways. Is like, man, what'd you do? What'd you do? And we don't give enough credit to greatness. That was great. We were trying to switch. We were trying to do a lot of different things. But when Maya gets on a roll, listen, I love that kid. I recruited the heck out of her up until, her and Caitlin were the same age. And she just is a winner. And, it's that $1 million question, can kids that small, right? But she just is she's a great kid. My spouse is friends with her, parents, or we are. So she just had a really great performance in the second half. We got a little complacent in the second quarter, and that's where it became close. It was probably intense with my team at halftime because I've watched that team a lot on film, and if you look at their record, they lost by 3 to Kansas, they lost by 1 to Auburn, they beat Iowa State, and everybody's like, well, it was at home. If you watch how they beat Iowa State, it wouldn't have mattered if it was at home or on a neutral site. So, yes, we did some things incorrectly on defense, but I would just like to say that Maya McDermott is really, really good, and I'm impressed.
John.
When a player like that gets going, from a coach's standpoint, how frustrating is it when you don't know how to stop?
Yeah, I mean, it is because you're trying to switch. We went switching off with the 5, and then you try to counter with your size, and then they go back and, they ended up not trapping in the second half, but you go to a zone, right, to take away. You're kind of giving you more of the outside shot. So it's just like you got to hold on. And I just had an inkling in that second half. I thought it was going to be pretty important in that third quarter how we started it, and we didn't start it well. So I just told our staff, I said, anyway, we got to hold on, and we got to win it. And so we just tried to get different looks. But, if anybody's played, when you're in the zone, it's fun. And you can't explain it, but it doesn't matter what they throw at you. Now, could I trap the screens? I probably should have tried it and let anybody else beat you. I didn't do that. I didn't have the guts to go zone because sometimes it slows them down a little bit and then you're too open. Probably should have done that. But, we did about all the things you could do except trap. But it's frustrating, and I'm just really, really thankful. I think what's great about it, though, is there's just a lot of mutual respect, right? And I think that's what's cool about the rivalries.
David.
Jan, Taylor McCabe's probably been one of the players that's ridden the highs and lows and kind of been ups and downs, whether it be playing time and kind of everything else. But for her to go out there, play some really strong defense, too, it seemed like she had the important play 2 minutes ago, and hit all those threes, I guess. What impact does she have on the game, and what can that do for her moving forward, just knowing that she's capable of doing what she did tonight?
I think Taylor McCabe kind of embodies this particular team this year, but a lot of what our teams have been about. They're really a joy to coach, and they're just, for the most part, they trust, and they wait until they're needed. And Taylor has stayed the course, and she got stronger in the off season as we asked her to, and did all those things. But then when Sid came back, we felt bringing her off the bench would be better, and she was like, okay, I'll be ready. And what's evidence when you get your shot and you come in and you go 5 for 9 and you hit some clutch ones. And I thought she had some really great defensive plays. I think a lot of people like to say, oh, she's not as great defensively. She's definitely better offensively. But I was just really happy for her tonight because as a coach, that's what you love. When role players, and she's not exactly a role player, but you have her in the lineup. She's in the, coming off the bench. Sometimes it's a lot of minutes. Sometimes it's not many. And she just always is for the team. And she was, a big catalyst of why we won tonight. But personally, I'm just so happy. As a mom, I'm happy because that's how you want your kids to handle, whatever is in front of them. And they all want to start, and they can't all start. And so Taylor just said, okay, I'm so happy to be part of this team. I'm going to do what you want, Coach. And tonight she got her moment.
Chad.
So, Eddie O'Grady's stat line hasn't been too hot lately, but tonight she came up big. What worked for her? And also just on the post, particularly that.
Yeah, when they went to the zone, because then they were like, well, we got to take, Big Addy away a little bit. We could have done that better. We have an offensive set. We hadn't looked, we didn't hit the angles right when we should have hit Addy. I think we could have increased that, our cushion a little bit in the third. But we hadn't faced a lot of just zone, right? You can face it in practice, but until you get when the lights are on, so we kind of forgot to look at the angles. But Addy, tonight I think, they had her, doubled her a little bit, but we got her in the first half especially, kind of from the top end, and she was able to kind of, make some moves, and I think she just got a little bit tougher this week, I think. I just thought she just had a little grittier. She didn't really like how she performed, but I think she had that confidence that we just stayed steady. And I think when we stayed steady, then she stayed steady, right? I think sometimes the kid, when they don't have a game, they're kind of looking over their shoulder. What's going to happen? Well, nothing. You just need to perform a little better. And tonight she did.
Jan, you and Iowa State both play Northern Iowa and Drake.
Mm-hmm.
And Tanya was in here earlier, and I think she expressed appreciation for that. There's risk involved. Why do you do it? What value do you see in it, and will this continue indefinitely?
Well, I think women do it because, we've always, we've appreciated the fan bases always so much, I think. The women's game, I think people have appreciated it over the years because I think women play with a tenacity and a joy, and they compete really hard. And all my years that I was always trying to get fans to watch us, whether it was at Drake or here, is what I was trying to always sell the point, I guess, is like, okay, I know the men's game is popular in the pros, and I know everybody flocks to the men's games, but if you appreciate someone pushing towards a goal and being so passionate and working with their heart and soul, you can appreciate the women's game. And so when we got fans to kind of like, hey, you know what, they are working pretty hard. Didn't think anything away from the men. And this is where I'm going with it. So the fans, they really have been enjoying women's basketball for the spirit, in my opinion, of which the game has always been played. It wasn't ever a business like I think the men's side has been for a long time, right? So the risk when you play these, and it is risk, and this is no disrespect, but when we were at Drake too as coaches, and I love the mid-majors, I believe in them, but when you're the big guy, you're supposed to win. And so then everybody is like, they can't wait for the game because then the people can't wait for the big guys to fail. And if the little guys get close, it's like, way to go, little guys, right? And so then you play it, and then as the men's game, they get better and better. Look how good UNI is, right? Women. It's like the risk of when you play an in-state mid-major is a lot different than you play a mid-major from Ohio because you don't recruit half of the roster. So Bill and myself and Tanya and Allison, we're recruiting like crazy because we build our teams typically. So we continue to play it. I think the fan bases might riot. But B, I think there's, it's sport. It's local. It kind of makes sense, right? You're right down the road. It's tough. It's interesting. I mean, look at our room. A lot more fans, coverage on journalism, not fans, journalists. So, yeah, your business sense is like, yeah, can you give me a mid-major from Virginia? Because the emotional toll it takes. But then the understanding of how this state supports its women, I understand the importance of it. But I see both perspectives. But I think fans are starting to maybe. I know Bill had a comment when he played there. Heck, I'm very thankful we played here tonight. I was concerned about this game from the minute I started seeing you and I play. So I think that. I just think it's, we're not as business oriented. It's a business decision, sometimes, and I understand it. I understand it, and I don't judge it whatsoever. And I think a lot of people do, but there's a lot of pressure on those. And It's a business.
Coach, it was the Michigan State game where, it was the fourth quarter, and you guys, things kind of went sideways for your team. Tonight, you got a lot of pressure in the fourth quarter. What did it tell you about your team? What did you learn about your team when they got it down to like a 1-point game? You guys still were able to weather that storm.
Yeah, that's what I talked to the team about in there. I said, that's what we got to focus on, because they feel this pressure, like they're like kind of looking like you're looking at you like, oh, we let that lead slip. Is Coach happy? Heck yeah. I mean, I'm very happy. I mean, winning is hard. No matter who you play, it's hard. And in-state rivalry games are really hard. So that's exactly what I told them. I said there was a lot of moments when it kind of swung, but you did what you had to do when you had to do it. And I said, end the conversation. Enjoy it. We're going to play tomorrow. And I just said a lot of respect. We're going to work on the things. And I kept going back to the second quarter, because to me, it all happened in the second quarter. We let them get confident. They had a taste. And then we started to play on our heels. And then Maya had great, and other, Mashitia Wettering, I mean, I love that kid, they all had some really nice moments. And yes, we should have played better defensively. We usually have, but they were a good team.
Blake. Jen, I just want to ask about your free throw shooting. We talked about Hannah, yesterday. She was 7 of 8. You guys were 20th, 22 overall. I mean, how big was that when you guys had to have it? You had it from the free throw line.
Well, I think it's just really big for Hannah's confidence, and I think for the work and the habit she put in. Blake at a presser the other day, we were just talking about what was the difference with Hannah. And I said, well, she practiced. It's just like in high school, she could kind of get by and everybody was working on her form. But when she went through that freshman season, and I think it was a game at Indiana when she went really abysmal. And that stung and it hurt. And I think it was used as a motivator. And she worked and she worked and she worked. And that's what you'd like to see happen. So I'm really thrilled for her at System. I think I think what we do is fun, but it's a lot of life lessons that'll help them later. So if you put your nose to the grindstone and you try to right a wrong, and you work and you work and you work, doesn't guarantee you're going to have success. But if you don't work, that guarantees you won't. And so I'm proud of her for that, and really thankful, because tonight that percentage was the difference.
Last one, Chris.
Yeah. In the beginning of this presser right here, you just listed a couple teams that, like a couple D1 teams like Kansas, Auburn. You said that they really compete against them to beat Iowa State. So what is it about this team that allows them to compete against these high teams, and where does this team specifically compete against or compare against the ones that you've seen in the past?
The Northern Iowa team?
Yeah.
Well, I think you see a kid that has her COVID year in Maya McDermott. You got one go around. She'd been around the block. She had nothing to lose, and they've been in some really close games her whole career, and we've gotten kicked sometimes. So she chose to stay, and by golly, it looks like if she chose to stay, then they're going to go for it. So I think that's the thing. I think Kayla Laube is one of the best shooters. If you watch her on film, she's got the quickest release, and her range is really, really deep. So they're senior veteran leaders, and I think they've their stuff. It's a lot of their same stuff over the years. They've added a few more staggers and flips and just different. It's almost like misdirection in football. It's like they really want to get something later, but if you maybe don't pay attention to Maya, then she's going to hit a floater. But they do a really good job of, a lot of movement. And so I think they've added a little bit more movement. They got some, veterans, and they're well coached. Brad, Nate, Tanya. I mean, they do a really, really good job. And I think this state, everybody knows who they are, what they got, and they coach pretty well to what they want to be. And I think that Valley race with Allison Pullman and Drake and them, I haven't seen enough of the others, so don't come at me, other Valley schools. But boy, they're going to have some battles.
Thanks, Jim.